Mark Hewson, and I'm Senior Publications Officer at Milton Keynes office, Cotswold Archaeology. I'm also a fully fledged archaeologist, and I'm occasionally allowed to get my trowel and mattock out and take part in excavations, particularly when the opportunity arises in my hometown of Birmingham. Now, most Brummies will know that the wholesale market is located in the city centre on the south side of St Martin's Church by the Rag Market. Operated from 1973 until 2015 when it was demolished. And older Brummies will probably remember the preceding market, Smithfield Market, which was built in the early 19th century and occupied and operated until 1970. It's also the site, though, of Birmingham's first manor, established by the Birmingham family in the 12th century as a manor surrounded by a large moat. Speculated dates around 1166. There's no evidence of there being a town or a settlement there beforehand, and it's quite likely the establishment of the manor precipitated the growth of the settlement, and so might be considered Birmingham's Big Bang. So Cotswold Archaeology was invited by Birmingham City Council to evaluate the site prior to the next stage of redevelopment, and that meant we had the chance to open and excavate 3 large trenches to investigate whether there could be possible remains of the medieval moated manor underneath all that 19th century brick and 20th century concrete. The sort of thing we were hoping for was evidence of the infilled moat and any structural remains associated with the former medieval manor house or associated buildings that had been located there beneath the heart of the city. Now, Birmingham University had actually discovered elements of this in 1970 when the previous Smithfield Market was being demolished and the ground was being prepared for the wholesale markets. So we had a good indication that we may find something. The job took place in the bleak midwinter of 2020, and I had the pleasure of leading a small but crack team. Trenches had to be cut through 700mm of steel reinforced concrete. So we deployed the use of an 800mm floor saw, which kind of cookie cut out the shapes of the trenches, and then we broke them open with a 20-ton excavator with a chisel tip, reinforced kind of chisel tip, and its tooth bucket to pull all the concrete out. So this isn't the type of excavation really that requires dental picks and brushes, and to some folks might be considered less aesthetically appealing than many of the pretty kind of rural sites you might be familiar with. For us, it was great fun, bit of a change, lots of safety considerations to take account of and to be vigilant for, and plenty of noisy excavation activity. The locations of our trenches draw on the outstanding skills of our geometricians, who targeted them by using overlays of modern maps on key 18th century maps of Birmingham, which depict the moated manor and St Martin's Church and the street pattern around, and could quite accurately be tied to the existing street pattern in that part of the city centre. So we placed them where we thought we'd find the original moat and possibly parts of the manor buildings or associated outbuildings. And all 3 of our trenches answered the basic key questions that we were seeking answers to. Reaching a depth of about 2 metres from the modern concrete surface, Trench 1 identified the earliest in situ remains of the moat, in situ deposits in the moat there, which lay directly over the solid natural sandstone. Dark organic, sulphury smelling silty deposits had been sealed when the moat was deliberately backfilled for the levelling and then construction of the Smithfield Market in the 19th century. And we recovered a large sherd from a 13th, 14th century tankard, which was found sunk at the base of the moat, and you might postulate that it was broken during a festive bout of drinking 700 or 800 Christmases ago, and got chucked into the moat, which would be nice to think. Trench 2 reflected the dramatic changes witnessed on site from the early 19th century during its operation of a Smithfield Market, which had required the deliberate infilling of the moat, as I said, and levelling of all buildings associated with the former manor. following the sale of the land in 1816 and the removal of all useful material, including all the building stonework, all the woodwork, wooden bridge over the moat and the brook that fed the moat, and the orchard trees were chopped down and taken away for wood. Excavation here revealed remains of 19th century wells, the bases of walls, cellars, and brick buildings associated with the Smithfield market, as well as lots of tin, offcuts, wire and other workshop debris from casting and tinning shops and from the blacksmiths, and substantial amounts of animal bone from the cattle markets are also associated with the site. Trench 3 was focused on the moat and the manor, and we identified more of the infilled moat, the southern arm of the infilled moat, and more significantly in situ evidence of well-preserved sandstone structural remains associated with the moated manor itself, or one of the substantial adjunct buildings that would have been part of the manor house. The dressed sandstone wall had been damaged by demolition and levelling works during both the 19th century construction of Smithfield and also in-ground works for the wholesale market and the piling for that. Medieval wall where it survived comprised cut and dressed sandstone blocks, finely dressed sandstone blocks, and the wall would have looked out over the southern arm of the moat. Within the interior there's the remains of the rough dressed face of the walls and the bases of the floor foundations, which presumably would have represented elements of rooms to its interior. The next episode is that the site will be used during the Commonwealth Games next summer as the venue for 3-on-3 basketball and beach volleyball tournament. When the game's over, we hope to be back to excavate in more detail over perhaps a wider area in advance of the new development of the site for the new markets that are going to be there. And perhaps in a few years' time, the remains of Birmingham's first substantial house may again be visible to the city, perhaps under a reinforced glass floor, as the next established markets become more active again and people are able to visit. Thanks.